Hi everyone, I'm Sandhya. I'm your botany lecturer. In this video, we are going to discuss about the succession, plant succession. This topic comes under the ecology and plant ecology. This we have already learned. We have already learned in the introduction part. Everything we have learned in the last video. So in this video, we are going to study about succession and plant succession. But before going into the topic, I would like to discuss about a few terms such as species, pollution, and community. Because these are the terms which will be coming now and then. So let us be clear what these terms are. What these terms are. So species are nothing but similar individuals in a which are living in a particular area. Similar individuals which are living in a particular area are called as species. A group of individuals which are similar, which are similar in their characteristics, maybe morphological, physiological, anything like that. But similar individuals living in a particular area is called as species. Then population. Population means a group of similar individuals belonging to the same species. Okay, a group of similar individuals which belong to the same species which are living in a particular area is called as population, or you can say assemblage of all similar species is called as population. Then coming on to community. Community means what? Community or biotic community means it is the assemblage of all the populations. Assemblage of all the populations. Of all the populations of different species. Of different species which are living in a particular area. Which are living in a particular area. Community means it is assemblage of all the populations of different species which are living in a particular area. It is also called as biotic community. Okay, so species, population, and community. Coming on to our topic, succession. Succession. So, see, this particular community is there. No, the community is going to change. It is going to change its structure and composition according to the change in the environmental factors. With the change in the environmental factors, there will be change in the structure and composition of this particular community. So, and that particular change is it is orderly, it is sequential, it is sequential, and it is gradual. It is gradual, orderly, sequential, and it is predictable also. And it is parallel with the changes in the environment. So what all changes are going to take place in the community? Those changes are gradual, orderly, sequential, and parallel with the changes in the environment or physical environment. And what happens after going through all these stages? What happens? Gradually it will lead to a stable. A community will be developed which has acquired a equilibrium with the environment. So that community where it is in equilibrium with the environment, that particular community which has acquired stability, that particular community is called as climax community. Climax community. Okay. So what happens? The changes will be occurring, and those changes are gradual, orderly, sequential, and parallel with the changes in the environment. So what happens after these so many changes? What happens? It leads to a community that is near an equilibrium with the environment. That community is called as climax community. Okay, and the gradual and the fairly predictable change in the species composition in the community, that particular change is called as ecological succession. Ecological succession. Okay, so this ecological succession will lead to the climax community anamata. So because of what all changes which occur, all these things, no, predictable also. predictable. All these changes are nothing but the ecological succession. Ecological succession. And during this succession, what happens? A particular population will increase. And what happens to the other population? The other population will be totally declining, or it may totally disappear also. So this happens. This is quite natural matter. So a climax community will be there at the same time. During the succession, the succession populations of other species may decline or even disappear also. Then, so whatever the communities are forming in the ecological succession, okay, the entire sequence of communities which are forming in the ecological succession, that entire sequence is called as cirrus or cirrus. Okay, the entire sequence of communities that successfully change in a given area are called as cirrus. And what all individual transitional communities are called as serial stages. The individual communities in ecological succession are called as serial stages. Okay. So the entire sequence of communities that successfully change, those steps, those individual stages are called as cells, and the individual community is called as serial stages, one and the same. Then what happens? So what happens here in the serial stages? From one serial stage to another serial stage, there will be increase in the population. And there will be increase in the biomass. So, there will be increase in the population, increase in the biomass. In detail, we are going to study in the coming time. So, what happens? The gradual change is occurring. The communities will be changing. So, initially they will be less in number, but as the succession proceeds, they will increase in number. Okay, there will be increase in population, there will be increase in biomass. So from one serial stage to another serial stage, there will be increase in population and there will be increase in biomass. So coming on to the succession now. This is about the general discussion. Now with examples, I'm going to explain about the succession and plant succession. Okay. So coming on to succession now. Succession is a process that starts where this particular succession may takes place where no living organism may be there. No living organism exists, or already the living organisms are there, but they were lost. So lost living organisms, we can say lost living organisms existed, means they were living organisms, but because of some disturbances, because of some changes, they were lost in matter. So this is succession is a process that starts where no living organisms are found ever exist, and also area where all the living organisms existed were all lost in matter. So no living organisms exist can be the example of bare rock. Bare rock means in that bare rock, on that bare rock, there were no living organisms at all. Lost living the living organisms are lost. The living organisms existed are lost. We can give the examples of burnt forest, abandoned land, or flooded area, like that. Flooded land area, like that. We can give the examples. So it can exist in two types of matter. So the first one is called as where the succession where no living organisms were there. That type of succession is called as primary succession. First succession. Then the succession where the living organisms were existed, but later on they were lost. So such type of succession is called as secondary succession. Secondary succession. Okay. So in detail with examples we are going to study now about these things. If you take the examples of primary succession, newly cooled larva. One such example is bare rock I have given. Then newly cooled larva. Cooled lava is an example. Then bare rock, newly created pond. Newly created pond. Then pond or reservoir are all the examples of primary succession. So in this case what happens, here the succession is very slow because the whole process has to start from the beginning. So it is very slow, and it takes billions and thousands of years to start the succession. And again to start the succession and to attain the climax community, to become for the communities to be in equilibrium with the environment, to attain the climax community, it takes some thousands of years, because all the way it has to start from the living organisms. Newly it has to start, so it will take more time, and there must be a soil. It is slow, there must be a soil also, and also it has to the soil plays an important, the formation of soil plays an important. At the same time, this soil has to become fertile. This has to become fertile. So it will take so many thousands of years. Coming on to secondary succession. Secondary succession, very good example is burnt forest, abandoned farmlands, you can say flooded lands. Like that, you can give the examples. Here what happens, the living organisms existed, then they were lost because of some disturbances. That means the soil is already there. The soil is already there. The soil is already there. So here the succession is somewhat fast. It is quick compared to primary succession, because the soil is already there. Soil or sediment is present, and succession occurs here is faster than primary succession. Then here here what happens, the soil is already there, then the vegetation will be very much faster, and the animals which are dependent on the vegetation also will also be fastly grown. So this particular ecological succession depends upon the vegetation and animals which are present in that one, and also the decomposers which are present in that particular area also changes, and here the ecological succession takes place. Then at any time during this primary succession, the secondary succession, any time that the change may occur because of the natural or human induced disturbances. If there are any disturbances in between the succession, the changes may occur, and it may go back to the earlier stage. Or you can say it can create a new species or new community which may discourage or encourage the other species. Okay, so then during ecological succession, if there are no disturbances in the primary and secondary succession, then definitely that succession will be successful, and it will produce a climax community. But if there are any disturbances, human induced or nature induced disturbances, what happens, that particular species or the particular community may be lost, or it may go on to the earlier stage, and some of the species may encourage or discourage to live, to survive. So this is about the general ecological succession. Now we will deal in detail about the plant succession of plants in terms of primary and secondary succession. Okay, so by giving examples, we are going to study about plant succession. So this particular succession is of two types. Succession of plants is of two types: hydrart succession and Zerark succession. Okay, hydrarch succession and Zerark succession. So hydrarch succession is going to take place in water or wetter areas. Zerark succession is going to take place in dry areas, or you can say on land areas, or you can say land areas. So here you have to remember one thing, that in hydrarch succession, from hydric conditions to mesic conditions, the succession takes place. And if you take the Zerark conditions, from Zerric conditions to mesic conditions. So whatever may be succession, hydrarch or Zerark, whether succession is taking place in water or in dry areas or land, that succession from water to mesic conditions and Zerric to mesic conditions. There is normal where the water is not deficient or water is not abundant. So such type of condition takes place. So if you take so in here both hydrarch and Zerark successions lead to medium water condition, mesic, neither too dry, neither too wet, hydric. So first we are going to study about the primary succession on rocks. First of all, we are going to study about the primary succession on rocks. Primary succession on rocks, on bare rocks or on rocks. So what happens? The first species which are going to invade the bare rocks are called as pioneer species. Okay, pioneer species. Okay, the species which are going to invade the bare area are called as the pioneer species. So in primary succession on rocks, the lichens are the pioneer species. So these lichens are nothing but these are the organisms which are having both algae and fungi. They are both algae and fungi are living in symbiotic association. The algae provides the food, the fungi provides the shelter. So lichens are the group of organisms. Okay. So the pioneer species in primary succession of rocks is the lichens. So what do? These lichens are going to secrete some acids to dissolve the rock. These lichens secrete acids to dissolve the rocks such that it makes favorable for the bryophytes to grow. So okay, by the secretion of acids, the rocks will be dissolved, and it helps in withering and soil formation. Okay, it helps in withering and soil formation by secreting the acid, dissolving the rocks, the weathering and the soil formation takes place. So this helps the bryophytes to grow. So what happens? Very small plants, the bryophytes will be growing, and then within no time, what happens? The bigger plants are going to grow. So then it will lead to a last stable climax community. The stable climax community. First lichens are going to secrete acids which dissolves the rocks by weathering, and soil formation occurs. So if soil formation is there, the plants can grow. So what are going to grow? The bryophytes are going to grow. So when the bryophytes grow, then little bit bigger plants are going to grow. When bigger plants grow, then definitely it will lead to a stable climax community. On bare rock is the forest. So what happened here? From totally dry condition to mesic condition, it has occurred. Okay. Then the climax community remains stable as long as, so here this forest will be stable as long as there is no disturbance from the environment or no disturbance from the humans. So with time what happened? The xerophytic habitat has changed into a mesophytic habitat. This is about the primary succession on rocks. Now we will discuss about the primary succession in water. Primary succession of plants in water. Primary succession in water. That is from hydra to mesic condition. How it takes place? First, what happens? There will be water. The water will be there. This is a small pot. So what happens here? The small organisms will be there, phytoplanktons. The phytoplanktons are the pioneer species. Phytoplanktons. Phytoplanktons will be there. So from these phytoplanktons, afterwards what happens? They will be replaced by the free floating angiosperms. Free floating angiosperms. Then they will be replaced by the rooted hydrophytes. Then after few years or few period of time, after some time, what happens? This will be replaced totally with the grasses, and finally to trees, and finally the stable climax community to forest. So what has happened here? From hydra to mesic condition, the plant succession has taken place. The first pioneer species are phytoplanktons. They have formed into the free floating angiosperms. The free floating angiosperms to rooted angiosperms. Rooted hydrophytes to grasses to trees to forest. So this is how the plant succession takes place. The primary succession in water and matter. Then coming on to the secondary succession. Secondary succession means what? Already the living organisms existed there, but they were lost and matter. So in that area, again the succession of plants has to occur. So this secondary succession is somewhat faster. On rocks and on rocks or in water. The secondary succession is fast, or it is quick. Why? Because already the soil is there. Already the soil formation is there. So the rate of succession is much faster, and the climax is also reached more quickly. So the succession depends upon the soil and also on the availability of water. On the availability of water and soil, the secondary succession depends, and it is somewhat faster when compared to primary succession. But one has to remember one thing. Okay, it is clear that the primary succession is very slow. It takes thousands and thousands of years for the climax community to be obtained. But for the secondary succession, it is somewhat faster, and it is somewhat quick and matter. And whatever may be the succession, the primary or the secondary succession, they may change when there are any disturbances. Maybe the environmental disturbances, the natural disturbances, or the human-induced disturbances. And these successions, what is happening here? Whatever may be, it may be hydrarch or it may be xerarch. It may be too wet or it may be too dry. They all will lead to a mesophytic stage. That is nothing but similar climax community. That is nothing but the mesic one. Okay. So the whatever may be the succession whether taking place in water or on land, proceeds to a similar climax community, the mesic one. So this is about the plant succession. Coming on to the next topic, ecosystem services or ecological services. In this video, I am going to just discuss about the introduction. The next video, we are going to learn in detail. So the introduction part, I am going to take now. Ecosystem or ecological services. Okay, so before going into services, let us know what is ecosystem. Ecosystem is the functional unit of nature. Ecosystem is nothing but it is a functional unit of nature, and where the living organisms are dependent on physical environment and actually not actually dependent, they're interdependent, where the living organisms are interdependent on the physical environment. Physical environment means abiotic factors. The living organisms are the biotic factors, the physical environment is the abiotic factors. So this biotic and abiotic factors are interdependent on each other. So this interdependence, wherever it is happening in a particular area, that particular area is called as, that particular area is called as the ecosystem. So ecosystem is a functional unit of nature. So ecosystem can be anything: the forest, a pond, a lake, an aquarium, a particular room. So anything can be an ecosystem, where the living organisms and the non-living organisms, they are interdependent on each other. And the term ecosystem was first coined by A.G. Tansley. A.G. Tansley. So this is about the ecosystem. Coming on to the ecological services now. Ecological services. The term itself says what it is. The services provided by the environment. The services provided by the environment, or you can say these are the processes by which the environment produces the resources that we often take granted, such as clean air, fresh water, timber, habitat for fisheries, the pollination by natural and agricultural plants. So all these services we always take them granted. So these are the services which are provided by the environment that we often take granted. And all these services we human beings are dependent on them. We human beings are dependent on the environment. We human beings are dependent on the environment, on the nature, for so many things. For what? For pure air, for fresh water, for food, timber, pharmaceutical products, genetic resources. For so many things we are dependent, and the nature is giving us also, and we are taking for granted. So we are taking for granted, and we are taking for granted that is really very bad. We shouldn't take it for granted. Moreover, if you take it for granted also, it's okay, but we have no right to spoil it, because these ecosystem services or ecological services are going to balance the environment. They are going to regulate the environment. So if there is any disturbance, the whole environment will get disturbed, and in turn we human beings will be disturbed. Okay. So these are the processes. These are the processes by which the environment produces. The environment produces resources. So all the resources that we often take granted, are called as ecological services or ecosystem services. Like for example, the examples are clean air or pure air, fresh water, then timber, habitat for fisheries, then pollination. Yes, pollination is also very important. Pollination for native plants and agricultural plants. All these are occurring free of cost. You can say free of cost, and we human beings are taking for granted, and we are for our interest, for our growth of money, for economy we are disturbing the environment, which is very bad. The ecosystem and the environment is such a way that it regulates its changes and variations, and keeps the environment in a balanced condition. So all these ecological services, they maintain the biodiversity. So these are the services which they provide, and these services, what happens, what for they are useful to maintain the biodiversity. Biodiversity means the living organisms are in different organisms. So different living organisms are maintained by these ecological services. Then they generate and preserve the soils. The soil they generate, and also they generate and preserve soils. They generate and preserve soils. Then they renew their fertility, contribute to climate stability, purify the air, water, and regulate the disease carrying organisms, pollinate the crops and natural vegetation. So this nature is continuously, it's detoxifying itself. But we human beings becoming more intelligent and causing some disturbances. Ultimately what will happen? Definitely a stable climax community will be there. Then again it will lead to the earlier stage itself, which may encourage one species or which may discourage the other species. So we should be careful that what we are doing to the nature, because the nature is doing it itself. If there are any disturbances, then definitely it is going to maintain its biodiversity. It is going to generate and preserve the soils. We are just a part of it. We are just the co-living organisms. So if we do any disturbances, we will be at loss. The nature will do its processes. It will maintain the biodiversity, generate and preserve the soils. It will renew the fertility also, and also it is going to maintain the climate stability and will regulate the disease carrying organisms and pollination by crops and natural vegetation also. So we should be careful. So these are the ecological services. Then so without which humans, these ecological services are very much important for the human civilization, are very important for the human civilization, and not only important for human civilization, it is also important for other living organisms also. So we should not be the reason to spoil such type of ecosystem services, because these ecosystem services are not there for us only. They are there for other living organisms also, for other animals, for other insects also. So if we do any disturbances, we will be at loss. The whole life will be danger. So then so what we are doing, we are taking for granted, and we are thinking that these services are of low cost compared to economy. But no, the value of these ecosystem services or ecological services is much more than the global economy. Much more than the global economy. Actually, it is priceless. We are getting them free of cost. That doesn't mean that the value is very less, or it is of low cost. No, it is free of cost, but its value is much more important than the global economy. It's much more important than the human civilization or the growth of the human population. It's much more important for the whole life. Maybe they are free of cost, maybe they are priceless, but the value is very much more than the global economy. Then so this particular ecological services also include the atmospheric ozone layer, where it will be absorbing the UV rays of the sunlight and protecting the life on the earth. Then so what is happening? The life on earth is being protected from the UV rays by what? By the ozone layer. So here these ecosystem services are regulating the life and matter. So we should be very much careful to protect them. So but instead we are spoiling them. So what happened? A scientist named Robert Constanza and his colleagues, they have decided to put some price tag on these free natural reserves also. Let us see in the future what will happen. Then Millennium Ecosystem Assessment. Millennium Ecosystem Assessment has grouped these services into 4 categories. Okay. 4 categories. What are they? Let's see. Wait a minute. Millennium Ecosystem Assessment. ecosystem assessment has grouped these ecological services into 4 categories. First one is supporting ecological services. Supporting ecological services, which will be supporting the life on the earth, such as nutrient cycling, this phosphorus cycling, carbon cycling, oxygen cycling, so nutrient cycling. So nutrient cycling, carbon fixation also we can say in this only. Carbon fixation, oxygen release, oil production, soil formation, crop pollination, soil formation and crop pollination, all will be coming under the supporting services, supporting the life, supporting the biotic factors on the earth. So supporting services, all this come under the supporting services. Coming on to provisional services. Provisional services, the services which are given by the nature, which give us provisions, like for example food, timber, medicines, all these are the provisions which we are getting from the nature. Then fuel and water, all these are the provisional services. Coming on to regulating services, regulatory services. These are the services which will be regulating the ecological services or the resources. Such type of things are nothing but climate regulation. Climate regulation, one very good example is nothing but the ozone layer. The ozone layer is the one which will be regulating the life, which will be protecting the life from the UV rays. So climate regulation, then climate regulation, water purification, the water cycle also you can say, water purification, flood protection, etc. are the regulatory services. Coming on to the fourth one, cultural services. Cultural services, this nature is not only gives us provision, supporting, it also regulates, but it also gives some cultural, it also gives some education to us. It also gives some recreation, happiness, and it also gives some happiness in the sense aesthetic feelings, emotions. So that aesthetic value is also given by these ecological services. Okay, so these are the 4 services of ecological services. Then out of the total cost of the various ecosystem services, the soil formation forms about 50%. Okay, total cost of various ecosystem services, the soil formation accounts for about 50%, and the contribution of nutrient cycling, and recreation is very much less than the 10%. Then the cost of climate regulation, is less than it's not less than, it's climate regulation and habitat. Habitat for wildlife is about 6% each. Okay, so out of the total cost of the total cost of the ecological services, the soil formation is about 50%, then the nutrient cycle and recreation less than 10% each, then climate regulation and habitat for wildlife is about 6% each. So soil formation is very, very important. We always think that, oh, it's a soil, no, we think like that, but the soil formation is very, very important. The soil is very, very important. So it costs for about 50% of the total cost of the ecological services. So we should not think that what all we get for free of cost, we should waste it. No, we should know the value of it. We should understand it. We should conserve it, and it should be in such a way that we utilize it. At the same time, we give in the same process, same way to our future generations also. Sustainable development also we should be there. What all things we have enjoyed from the nature, we should be able to give to our future generations also. What all good things, enjoyable things, recreational things, educational things, what all we have learned from the nature, we should be able to learn them, and also we should pass on to the future generations. And we should not do any spoilage to the nature, or we should not do any harm to our nature such that our future generations suffer. So we should know we should understand the nature very much properly. The main reason to learn ecology is we should understand it. We should understand it, and then we should know how to conserve it also. How in what way we got the nature, in the same way we should pass on to our future generations.